Wouldn't it be great if there was some kind of utility where you could enter a few key numbers about your electricity usage and it would instantly reveal which smart tariff was best for your particular setup? Well, I think I found it. Hi there, I'm Gary and welcome back to my channel, Gary Does Solar. There's no denying it, some of the smart tariffs that are available these days are pretty complex. I recently made this video which walks through all the main smart tariffs available from Octopus Energy here in the UK, and if you haven't seen it yet, the link is in the description. I realised after making this video that it would be easy to get a feeling about a particular tariff, that it would save you the most money for your setup, whether that be solar and battery with an EV, solar and battery with a heat pump, or indeed all four. But maybe the best tariff for you is not the one that you thought it would be. How would you know? One way might be to get hold of all your historical energy data and do some spreadsheet analysis on it. But that's not for everyone, not even me, and I happen to like spreadsheets. But I found a much better way, and it's one that only requires you to enter a few key metrics to get an instant result. Let's take a look at it. The tool is called Solar Tariff Optimizer, and it's been developed by Tim, who you may know from Tim and Kat's Green Walk YouTube channel, which I highly recommend. To access it, just type timandcatsgreenwalk.co.uk into your browser and you should see something like this. It's very well laid out, and although some of the tables and charts might look a little daunting when you first see them, they all make sense, as you'll see in a moment. So what's the best way to use this tool then? Well, Tim provides a series of videos that go into detail on all the various options, but I'll show you here how to get a result just by entering a few key metrics. Let's start with your tariff region in the UK. I happen to know mine is Southern England, but don't worry if you don't, just click on the link here and enter your postcode to find out. Next, enter details about your home battery, starting with its capacity in kilowatt hours. My battery is 19 kilowatt hours. The forced export limit percentage is if you want to export some of your remaining battery capacity in the early evening by forced discharging your battery. You can select the percentage to force discharge down to here. By the way, anywhere you see a grey information icon, you can click on it to get extra detail on a particular setting. So here you might want to ensure there is, say, 30% state of charge remaining in your battery after exporting in the early evening. As I don't force discharge the battery myself currently, I'll enter 100% to avoid that happening. The lower limit percentage is the minimum state of charge for your battery. For my battery it's 4%, but if you're not sure, just set it to say 10%. Let's fill in the usage settings next. The first setting is the percentage of your normal home usage in the early evening. That's between 4 PM and 7 PM. For me, it's about 25%. The next two settings are all about when electricity is used for your heating. You might have a heat pump, for example. Just enter the percentage of your home heating during both the early evening peak and overnight off-peak periods. Now my home heating is powered by gas, so I'll set both of these to 0%. Okay, we're on to the quick settings now. There is an advanced mode coming up, but for most people, entering these 5 settings here will be sufficient for you to get an instant result of the best smart tariff for you. Home use is what your home uses throughout the year, excluding any home heating and EV charging, which will be captured in a moment. It should also exclude all the home battery charging, as this will automatically be taken into account by the tool. If you're not sure what to put in for this value, you could always look at what your electricity bills were before your renewable systems were in place as a guide. The figure for me is 5,400 kilowatt hours. Next is your EV use. Just enter the total kilowatt hours of electricity that you used for EV charging. For me, that's 3,400 kilowatt hours. Hot water use is next. As my water is heated by gas, I simply set this to 0. The same with heating use, that's also 0 for me. Finally, generation is the expected generation from your solar panels over a year. I have a 7 kilowatt peak south-facing array that produces 7,250 kilowatt hours annually. Okay, with just those few numbers entered, we're there now. And as you can see, the tool has already calculated the best tariff for my circumstances. It's Intelligent Octopus Go. The value that you see here in brackets is the annual cost for me on that tariff. You can see here it's negative, which means it's money I would earn over the year rather than a cost. So quite amazingly, despite my relatively high home usage and extensive home EV charging, instead of paying an electricity bill, I'll earn £73.96. Not bad. Okay, let's move down the screen a little further. What you see here is a monthly breakdown of my electricity usage. You can watch Tim's videos or read the detailed information for this section to get a good understanding of all the values here, but I want to draw your attention to the right-hand side. If we look at the best tariff column, it's actually showing the best tariff for me in each month. It's quite an interesting concept because, as you can see, there are a few months during the year where Intelligent Octopus Flux is better for me, even though I do a lot of EV charging. For those of you who are already with Octopus Energy, you'll know that you can typically change tariffs every month if you wanted to. And so for me, it's certainly an option to change from Intelligent Octopus Go to Intelligent Octopus Flux at the start of May and then switch back again at the start of August. But if you look at this number, you can see that it only earns me an extra £13 or so over the whole year. So it's not really worth me the effort changing twice a year. It might be very different for your situation though, so it's just good to know the options, and that's exactly what Tim's tool provides. Now there are other options that can be configured, including the various strategies that can be employed and which smart tariffs to include or exclude from the analysis. And there are also some nice charts too which visualize all of the data. All in all, I really like this tool and I think you will too. Just one other thing to show you then. Let's go back up to the forced export limit percentage again, and let's say I wanted to enable that by entering 20%. What effect will that have on my earnings, do you think? Let's see. That's over £300 of extra earnings. It just shows you the power of spending a little time with the tool to explore all of the possibilities. Now, if this video has got you thinking about switching to Octopus Energy to access these tariffs, or to get a solar and battery installation in the first place, here are some links that might be useful to you, which will also support the channel. Thank you. I wanted to find out a bit more about the work Tim is doing in this area, so I had a quick chat with him. Well, hi there, Tim. It's really great to meet you.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me along.
Yeah, no worries. So, like me, you run a YouTube channel, and it's called Tim and Kat's Green Walk. But for those people who might not have come across that yet, could you just say a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, well, basically, my wife and I, we moved into this house about 4.5 years ago, and it was a new build. We were the first ones in, and it was a blank slate, really, and it was a perfect opportunity to do something I'd always wanted to do, which was add solar panels to the house.
Yeah.
So that was the start, really. We started getting some quotes in and all that, and I thought, well, actually, you know what? It'd be really good if I actually recorded the journey that we were on and put it out on YouTube, so that hopefully it would inspire other people to see what was possible and the sort of things we were doing. So we ended up getting solar panels and an air-to-air heat pump system and an EV and all that stuff. So yeah, it's basically showing people what we've done in our daily lives.
That's really good. And a lot of people talk to me about it as well. So I know that you're getting the message out there, which is really good. So Tim, I wanted to have a quick chat with you today. I mean, you've put a really great utility together there. And maybe I could ask you a few questions about it. And I guess the first question I've got to ask you then is, what led you to develop this in the first place?
That's a good question. Basically, I enjoy trying to sort of optimize things and getting the best out of the equipment that we've had installed. And I realized that it was actually quite a complicated thing to work out what tariff we should be on. Given all of the multiple tariffs that Octopus have available, some of which are suitable for heat pumps, some of which are suitable for solar, some of which are suitable for EVs. But if you've got all of those things, it's really not clear to me which one would be the best. If you've got all of that stuff, they're all competing against each other in certain ways. And I started doing the calculation for my own purposes, and I realised that actually, given that I've got a YouTube channel, I could show people the process that I went through and how I was doing that calculation. And so I was it last year? I think it was last summer. I put out a spreadsheet that it was just a simple spreadsheet calculation that I made available for people to do that calculation for their own systems. And then I realised that actually there were some limitations to the way I was doing that calculation, and I thought, well, actually, I could move to doing it in code rather than in a spreadsheet, and that would give me a lot more flexibility. And I realised that actually I could make that freely available if I made it a web app.
Yes.
So that's what I started to do. I started to build this little web utility, and then I made it available for anyone to use, and that's that's the origin of the solar tariff optimizer.
Fantastic. And actually, it's not too dissimilar to what happened to me with, one of the utilities that I created. That actually started with a spreadsheet as well, but it gets to the point where the formulae just gets too much, doesn't it? And switching to a utility really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, when you were developing that utility and testing it, I mean, I put in my own data into it, and there was a surprising result in that I didn't need to stay with just one tariff. I could switch to a different tariff per year and save a little bit more. What would you say were the surprising things that came out of that? Particularly with the tariffs. I mean, I think we've all got predispositions that certain tariffs are better than others, but was there anything that came out to you that was quite unexpected?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's quite a neat tool for doing that sort of what-if analysis. But one thing I was unsure about was when Cozy would be a good tariff to be on, because everyone says obviously Cozy is a great tariff if you're on a heat pump, if you've got a heat pump. But if you've got solar, actually, it's surprising that as soon as you add battery and solar, Cozy is almost never the right tariff for you to be on, simply because if you can store cheap overnight power in your battery, then actually you're way better off with an EV tariff, ironically, and that makes running a heat pump a lot cheaper than actually if you were on the Cozy tariff, which is sort of designed specifically for heat pump users. So I think this is where the power of that sort of calculation can help you, is by showing that despite your preconceptions, if you think that a heat pump tariff is the best option, if you've got solar and a battery, maybe it's not. Maybe an EV tariff is the right choice. So those sorts of little things that catch you out, that maybe sort of challenge your preconceptions about what you think might be the right tariff. So it's definitely worth actually doing the proper calculations, I think.
Yeah, and I wonder if Octopus Energies, they have a few tariffs in your utility. I wonder what modelling tools they have to effectively determine the different rates, to see how those tariffs marry up against each other for people in different situations. Because it's inevitable, isn't it? If you start off with an EV, you might then get a heat pump, or you might get solar and battery. Or if you start off with solar and battery, you might end up with an EV and then possibly a heat pump. I think that's the journey I'm on. So ultimately, I guess we end up with more than one form of renewable energy or renewable equipment in our house. And therefore, are we still, the world of dedicated tariffs to dedicated equipment, is that really going to be what's required in the market in 2 or 3 years' time? It's interesting. But
yeah, exactly.
But okay, so Cozy sounds like it could do with a little bit of attention then from Octopus to make it a bit more, a bit more favourable to people. Otherwise, people just won't use it. Okay.
Well, I think if you've only got a heat pump, then it might still be the best option. But it's as soon as you add an EV or a battery, I think that's really when things change. Yeah.
So, I mean, the utility's great. Is that it done now, or have you got plans to develop it, or what's on your mind?
That's an excellent question. I think, well, as you know, if you've got your own utilities, there's always more that you want to do.
True.
And you always know where the limitations of your own tools are. And there's certainly some edge cases where I know my tool doesn't handle the calculation particularly accurately. In particular, at the moment, it doesn't account for things like charging and discharging rates for your battery. Yeah. So if you've got a battery that doesn't charge very quickly, then maybe this calculation isn't quite as accurate as it could be. So what I would like to do is to introduce a much more sophisticated set of calculations, which will give me a lot more flexibility. Because at the moment, although the calculation is pretty good, it does make a number of assumptions, reasonable assumptions, but assumptions nonetheless. And I would like to make it a bit more flexible so that I can introduce things like charging and discharging limits for your battery, and also things like export limits, because it's possible that you might be limited by the total amount of export that you can push out to the grid. So those are the sorts of things. They're pretty sort of edge case type scenarios that not too many people will experience, but I know there are going to be people out there who are going to be getting some slightly substandard calculations from the tool as it is, and I'd certainly like to address those in a better way. So there's a lot of things that I'd like to tweak. It's going to take a fair bit more work, but I'm pretty pleased with the calculation as it is, but it can always be improved.
Yeah, and actually I did notice in the documentation for your utility you had a quote in there, all models are wrong, but some are useful, and that tickled me that, and I think it's so true, isn't it? So,
Yep.
cool. All right then, and you got other utilities in the pipeline? Have you got time for other utilities?
There's never enough time, as I'm sure you're aware. So I'm taking a short break from working on the tariff utility to do a new sort of, I'm calling it Tim's Energy Analytics. So basically, I do my own sort of statistics every now and again for how my system is performing, how much I'm importing and exporting to and from the grid, things like that. And I was getting really fed up with all of the many spreadsheets that requires. So I decided I would do the same sort of thing and build a web app to handle some of the grunt work.
Okay.
So I'm starting with a new utility to do that sort of thing, pulling in data from the Octopus API, because that's something you can do, which is great. I really appreciate Octopus making that available. And I'd like to add a load of stuff to that to make it easier for me to understand how much peak power I'm pulling from the grid, for example, things like that. And that's going to enable me to answer other questions like, can I afford to get another battery to add to my system? Would that be worthwhile? And would I save money doing that? Or would it not be worth me getting that extra battery? That sort of thing. So that at the moment is available via my Patreon. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, please head over to my Patreon, Tim and Cat's Green Walk. I've got lots of ideas of other utilities that I will be making in the future, but as you said, it just takes a lot of time. So it's going to be drip feeding into that Patreon suite of utilities. But the solar tariff optimizer will always be freely available for everyone to use. So don't worry, that's always going to be available.
Great stuff. Well, Tim, thanks very much for spending time on this. I know it's going to help literally thousands of people, and can't wait to see the new stuff that you're working on. And I'll put some links in the video description for your channel and also your Patreon. And I would just say to people, if you're interested, have a look at those links and sign up and support Tim's work. Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gary. I'm pleased to have been given this opportunity to chat to you.
No worries. Cheers, Tim. I have to say, it's really great to see people like Tim, who, despite having a job in addition to running his YouTube channel, devotes his time and skills to developing utilities like this, which help others get the very best from their renewable journey. Before I go then, I'd like to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, including these here on the highest tiers. Your continued support allows me to make all these videos. If you're not a Patreon member but would like to support me in this way, it's easy to do. Just click on the link that you see here. Until next time then, thank you.